Well,
Well,
we are supposed to be live, Mr. Lowry.
Twitter says we're live. Got my notification like clockwork.
That's always a good thing. We're at least live on one out of the three, so I guess we need to check Facebook and YouTube. And wow, it jumped up to 15 people already.
Yeah, maybe there's a few folks that are awake on Thursday night. I mean, you know what? Probably some JV games going on at some of the stadiums around town. Don't think there's any pro football games tonight.
Not that I know of. I don't keep up with football that much. I'll watch it every now and then, but we might have a few people out watching games or whatever, but they can always catch it on the replay, so that's good.
Yeah. So, what is on the agenda for tonight?
Well, it's pretty much going to be the District 9 state rep candidate, Chris Turner, is pretty much going to be the Chris Turner show.
The Chris Turner Show. Now, we didn't label it the Chris Turner Show. What did we label it?
I've called it District 9 or something. It sounds kind of like some weird space age movie deal or TV show, but anyway.
Yeah. This was supposed.
Originally,
Good.
nah, you go ahead.
No, you could probably say it better. I'll defer to your.
Well, all right. So as you can see, folks, as normal, we're doing it just like amateurs. So originally we were scheduled to have Dodie Horton on and Chris Turner in our debate style in the office and all that, but unfortunately, it seems Dodie had a prior commitment or a commitment come up that she had to attend to, so she declined, and so Mr. Turner gets to pretty much get on his soapbox for a little bit.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But before we allow some politician to get on their soapbox, I mean, we're gonna chew the fat a little bit. Hey, have you seen what's going on in D.C. and walk on water?
Well, that sounds like a reference to our favorite silvery tongued person, Mike Johnson, but I've only kind of halfway been paying attention. What's going on?
Well, I mentioned it in our last show. They've got this big argument up there about continuing resolutions and spending money. And I don't know. I just thought maybe people around here would be interested to know exactly what the skinny is on things up there.
Well, I got a question, and we may want to answer it after the break, but why do they have to have these continuing resolutions? It's like they pass these laws. They literally write the bills and pass the law so they know what's in them. They know these things are coming, these time constraints or whatever, and they just seem to wait till the last minute.
I heard a statistic the other day that about made me lose my mind, and I don't know if I'm correct in this year exactly what I'm fixing to say, but I'm somewhere close, I think. But the statistic was that do you realize that Washington D.C. has not passed a budget since like 1935? That it's
What?
always since 1935, and that it's been nothing but like these continuing resolutions ever since then.
That's cool. No, I didn't realize that, but that sounds about right. I was a big fan of Drain the Swamp and all that, but that ain't never going to happen. You got to literally bulldoze the whole swamp out of there and start from fresh.
Well, maybe we'll show why. Maybe part of the problem is us, and maybe we'll show why here in a second. I say go ahead and go to the break, and we come back and we dive right into it.
Well, that sounds like a plan to me, folks. Y'all know the drill. Tag and share it out. Hello, Ashley Lee Bullock, Val Baker, Dee Dee White Clark. Y'all all know the drill. Tag and share this out. Go grab some popcorn. Get your favorite beverage on hand. We're going to hit our countdown, our little intro, and we will be right back. And on tap will be Chris Turner before too long. Here we go.
Knew a lot of the back office on the politicians that they think walk on water, they would be shocked. There's an old wound from a knife in my back that just is giving me heck lately, and it's just really irritating, so I have to kind of wiggle around a little bit.
Well, I've not heard my name in stable or Baton Rouge in stable in the same sentence in a long time.
I titled it A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boys.
Just, they feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
Some Republicans as well believe that government has the answers. And let me tell y'all something. I don't know anything government does well. Nothing.
And aren't there laws that say that you have public meetings so that the public can have accountability of their elected officials?
They're making a little bit of progress, but I would definitely have to give the race to Caddo Parish right now.
I don't know. Is there anybody from Plain Dealing watching, you think?
As a member of the media, I'm very concerned about what I've just heard.
Did you or did you not requisition some money to fight against this or for it?
We hired a lobbyist, and it cost us $15,000. We were opposed to HB 630.
So for this week, folks, the cockroach of the week, according to Bossier Watch and Duke Lowry and Rex Moncrief, is
Raymond Croon's legislative assistant, Allie Feaster Smith. Thank you, Allie. Well, I'm not thinking Star Wars at all. I'm thinking zombie apocalypse. No way. It was not David. You know it wasn't David Montgomery. David ain't going to jump off in there with Chris. He ain't going to do it. He'd as soon spit on him as he would even look at him. Man, this is a Mickey D's Krispy Kreme week. Didn't you know? Who's paying y'all? And if you're driving on the roads, are you safe?
It's on the road, yeah.
Well, I know you're on the road, but I mean, is this all folks coming from the border down there?
Yeah, it's going to border. It's actually going to Mexico, the buses.
doesn't mean they interpret it the same way that I do. For instance, the Second Amendment. I take it very literally. That's been interpreted different ways in the court system all the way up to SCOTUS. Yeah, that's only going to cause more division that he claims he doesn't want to cause. And it's only going to cause more suspicion. We're still right now combined on both pages and YouTube at 264 people watching. That is amazing, folks. Coleman Project, the Walker Place deal, through conscious, shocking action. The purpose of their actions was to stop plaintiffs, being the Ewell, Coleman, and associated groups not, from developing Walker Place. But here's the key thing, which in turn would enrich sitting city council members Scott Irwin and David Montgomery Jr.
You hit the button? Does that mean that people are seeing us sitting here talking and chatting?
In theory, you know, it's an every week thing. We got to double check and make sure it's like a miracle any of this actually works. This Bossier Watch live broadcast is brought to you by the Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 25 years in the mortgage business. Pelican Training and Consulting. Reach out to Julie Ferris. Transact Card. Unleash the power of your spending with Z-Bucks. Contact Renee Hall. Smarter Geek. Making technology easier. And the many supporters, donations, and folks sharing information and watching out for Bossier. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. And, well, saying it again for show number 172. Actually, we've had more than that, but here we are again.
Good grief. That is a lot. How many hours did you say? How many hours of our life is that we've...
Thousands. Literally 12 days. If you watched continuously, 12 days of content.
That's right. Because I remember distinctly saying last show that if I had to watch 12 days of myself, I'd just have to commit Harry Carey.
Right.
I couldn't take it.
Yeah, I probably would too. Not just listening to you, but, you know, listening to myself for that long. Even though I do like to hear myself talk. But anyway, I digress again.
Yeah, we're going nowhere here.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those nights.
So, hey, last show, you know, so I made a reference to, you know, Walk on Water and watching this continuing resolution thing in DC. Remember, we were talking about, you know, all this freaking endless spending money, and then everybody scratches their head and wonders, how now we have all this debt? How are we so upside down?
Right.
Well, all right. I want to play a video and share my screen, Rex. And
Okay.
I want to set the stage of what we're talking about. And what we're talking about here is Washington, D.C., you know, they're discussing budgets, and they're talking about the process of divvying out all the money. And, you know, probably in most of all of our lifetimes, The way they've done business up there is they throw it all in a big pile and they pass one bill and they do everything in one big lump sum, one big shot. And
Right.
remember Nancy Pelosi saying we have to pass it to be able to see what's in it?
Right. Yes, I do.
Famously.
Very famous quote. Infamous quote, by the way.
Well, that ought to send a conservative or a limited government, that ought to send chills up your spine. Well, here we are again, and Matt Gaetz. A lot of people may not know Matt Gaetz. He's a congressman from Florida, and he kind of starts talking from the well about it. And I want to cue this up by playing his first comments. So
Okay.
let's listen to this.
All right.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not voting for a continuing resolution. I'm not voting to continue the failure and the waste and the corruption and the election interference, and in some cases, the efforts that could lead this country into World War III. I oppose the CR authored by my friend and colleague from Florida, Byron Donalds. The Donald CR continues the Ukraine policy negotiated by Speaker Pelosi and Mitch McConnell in the omnibus that conservatives were against. The Donald CR is a permission slip for Jack Smith to continue his election interference as they are trying to gag the president, the former president of the United States, and the leading contender for the Republican nomination. And the Donald CR abandons the principle that it is only a review of single subject spending bills that will save this country and allow us to tweeze through these programs, force these agencies to stand up and defend their budget. My friends, we are approaching the days where we're facing $2 trillion annual deficits atop a $33 trillion debt. This is unsustainable. And just to continue things with some facial 8% cut over 30 days that will lead to no programmatic reform is an insult to the principles we fought for in January. I yield back.
Pretty eloquent.
So, yeah, he set the stage. We're at 33 trillion, the highest debt that we've had historically in the United States. We're adding on 2 trillion basically, I think a year is what he was saying. And right now this continuing resolution, it's in his words an 8% cut over a short period of time, then back to business as usual. I mean, that doesn't do anything. And when Speaker McCarthy, you remember we showed all this, everybody was debating about, and Gaetz and his guys were holding out, not allowing him to become the speaker unless he committed to having, Congress address budget items one item at a time rather than everything in one big pile like Nancy Pelosi. We got to pass it to be able to find out what's in it, right? So that's the stage. You've got one vote to pass it to find out what's in it, or you got break it down and, okay, this is my electric bill. Can I pay that or is it too high? Do I need to turn a light off? This is my gas bill. Do I need to turn my heater off or not? This is my grocery bill. You break it out and you look at it. That's what Gaetz is proposing. So I'm just posed the question the other night, what about our congressman? Because our congressman, Walk on Water Johnson, is supposed to be the most conservative limited government, person in the state of Louisiana. He's anointing candidates and politicians all the way across and steering, our politics.
Well, and look, he did all those plane rides with Trump, took all those selfies with Trump. I mean, come on, he's got to be a conservative.
Got to be a conservative, but I'm just kind of scratching my head. Where does Mike actually stand? Well, we got a little bit of a glimpse of that because I think you may have this screen shared. He did an interview with one of the people from CNN, and I think it's pretty telling.
Okay,
so play that.
Yeah, here we go.
Republicans cannot agree on how to fund the government. I know y'all met behind closed doors today. Do you believe that there's going to be a government shutdown?
No, I don't. We had a very productive meeting tonight. It lasted 2.5 hours. It was an intense family discussion, but it was productive. And we walked out of the room, I think, with an agreement, at least the framework for an agreement amongst ourselves on how to proceed. I think there's an agreement on the top line spending number, which has been part of the controversy that we couldn't decide upon. We've got that now. I think we're going to do a stopgap funding measure that everybody's prepared to do that will allow us additional
Even the
time to get all
hardliners
the
are prepared to sign on to that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think all of them were in the room tonight. We had very fruitful discussion, and I think we've got agreement, at least, like I said, the framework for that going out. It was very positive leaving, and we're in a good place.
So those 7 or so who allegedly were not ready to sign on to any kind of short-term bill, any stopgap bill, you are saying tonight that they are prepared to vote yes for that?
Well, I think so. I think the requisite number are. What I do know is that some that voted, of the 5 friends of mine, Republicans that voted yesterday to stop the rule on the defense spending bill, for example, at least 2 of them tonight agreed to go along with that. So we'll have the rule vote tomorrow, the procedural vote, to proceed on the defense appropriations bill, and then the others will follow in short order. We intend to work through Saturday. I think Sunday and Monday are Jewish holidays, so we'll be out, but we'll be right back at it Tuesday, and I think we're going to meet the deadline. I really do.
But if this is dead on arrival in the Senate, then what?
Well, then we have ourselves in a good negotiation spot. You know, ultimately this will be worked out in a conference committee, and everyone knows that. But the House is strong when we pass our appropriations bills and put that, lay down those markers, so to speak. And like I say, I'm confident that we'll be able to do that. And I don't think there's going to be a government shutdown. I think we'll be able to get this done.
Do you think Kevin McCarthy's job is safe as House Speaker?
I think it is. Yeah, you know, Kevin has a very difficult job. We have a very small majority, one of the smallest in the history of this institution. And so it's difficult to get agreement for everybody across the board, especially on big spending measures. We're deeply concerned about
difficult
the federal
to say
debt.
the least. I mean, as you know, House Republicans voted down their own defense bill yesterday. That never happens.
Well, it was symbolic, okay? We're all worried about
Symbolic
spending.
of what?
Well, we have runaway spending in Washington, and we are trying to say that we've got to reduce the spending, reduce the size of government. We want to close the border. A lot of our members were really animated about that. We want to reduce and get rid of the corruption so people believe in our institutions again. There's a lot on our plate. And by doing the appropriations bill, we use these as landmarks to get those big measures
What
done.
the hell?
We're united on those causes. Everybody here agrees, on the Republican side anyway, agrees with those objectives. It's just a matter of getting the details done. And, you know, and it's the sausage-making process, right? You're seeing that out in the open because we got back to regular order.
He is so silvery-tongued and so smooth.
Now you're seeing the ugly process of legislation out front. And, you know, this is, the founders knew this. This is what they knew would be involved. And we're moving in the right direction in a positive way. And I'm really confident about it.
Okay, you are a member of House leadership. You were saying that you were confident there will not be a government shutdown. We will see if that is accurate. Congressman Mike Johnson, as always, thank you for joining.
So
Okay.
wait a minute. The Republicans voted down their own bill that the Republicans put forward?
I don't know on that one. That's not. I mean, you said it best. The silvery tongue thing. As far as voting down that what they were just talking about there, I don't know on that one or whatever. But there's so much here to unpack. Even the hardliners. Wait a minute. I thought he was elected because he was a hardliner. Because the hardliners are the limited government people like Matt Gaetz, who are actually wanting to go back to the original way the business of our federal government was supposed to work, where we went through item by item, you know, and budget by budget. But he's not saying that. He's saying,
he was saying a whole lot of stuff, but not that.
yeah, he was not saying that. In fact, he didn't say, oh, I'm one of the hardliners. So I'm just wondering, does all the people that worship the Walk on Water clan, are they hearing this? Are they reading between the lines? Or really what we're talking about here? And I'm not the only one that picked up on it. As a matter of fact, if you scroll up in that tweet right there, you know who tweeted that video right there?
Whoa, Matt Gaetz.
It's right. And tell me, read the first sentence that Matt Gaetz said in response to Walk on Water's statement there.
It says, and I quote, "This is not true."
Now, I mean, I'm trying to, you know, have civility here and not really say what I'm really thinking, but I'm thinking Matt Gaetz just called him out and said what you're saying's not true. And
pretty much he said it's a lie. I mean, that's a nice way. They always say, you know, my friend Congressman so-and-so was, you know, didn't tell the truth, instead of just saying he flat out lied.
Yeah, and
All
the
right.
whole time this lady is laughing. She's
Yeah.
giggling about the interview because she knows he's full of it as a Christmas turkey.
Right.
What he's
Well,
talking here.
every now and then CNN gets it right. So Matt's second comment and sentence is continuing resolutions are like Lay's potato chips. You can't have just one.
And that is this problem that we're seeing with government across the board, and I hate to say it kind of rolls into, I was interested in this debate tonight.
Mhm.
I wanted to address this issue with both candidates, but it seems like we are in this rut of we're constantly trying to elect which politician is the best politician to go down and bring home the bacon.
Yes, we've
And
heard that term a lot.
yeah, we've heard it. I mean, we heard it, Mike Johnson right there making the sausage. He
Well, it's just
referenced
another way of saying making the bacon.
making the
Sausage,
bacon.
bacon, same thing. Pigs at a
But
trough.
one more egregious point to point out right here, Rex. What he's talking about, if you go to cut one that I have chewed up, I want to show you something in this
Okay,
continuing resolution that obviously Mike Johnson supported and is pushing.
Right.
I want everybody to know. And,
All right.
Mike, by all means, if you want to come on the show and, you know, put the silver tongue out there and talk us down off the ledge and tell us how we're wrong, that you're not supporting the Nazis in Ukraine, by all means, you're welcome to come on.
Okay, so I've got the cut pulled up. So tell me why are we talking about Pelosi now? What is this?
Well, if you see on the right, there was Pelosi's bill funding Ukraine.
Mhm.
And you look on the left, that's in this continuing resolution that Mike Johnson's all on board with. And you know what? The language, it's a copy. It's the same thing.
Well, but after I don't even know where I want to go with this. Why the hell are we still sending money to Ukraine? Didn't we already send them like $40 quadrillion?
Well, because they're being invaded by Russia. Don't pay any attention to we've got trainloads of invasions from countless countries on our border dragging in fentanyl and who knows, God knows what. But that's not important. He's going to sit here in an interview and talk about, well, we would like to all do something, but we got to pass the bill to see what's in it before we can do something. Bullshit.
Dee White Clark said it best. Screw Ukraine.
I mean, and I'm just pointing out, walk on water is part of the problem. If he came on here, he would say, well, Duke, we got to work together. No, we don't have enough votes. What can we do? You vote against funding some of these damn departments. You start cutting the purse off. That's what you can do. You have your vote to do that, but he's not. You know why he's not? Because he's in there making sausage with McCarthy and the rest of them.
Well, all right. So I'm bringing up a comment from our good friend Ron Haygood. He says, I got no problem bringing home what we pay. We need everything in Louisiana. We're in bad shape. Now, we're going to address some of this when we talk to Chris here in a little bit, probably, on the state scale as far as bringing home the bacon from Baton Rouge. So we'll kind of address that, but it is a problem one way or the other. And I don't know if I completely agree. I understand what Ryan's saying, but I'm not sure I completely agree with it.
Well, Mike can't claim to be the limited government conservative that he has everyone in Northwest Louisiana believing when he's articulating and fighting for more swamp, bigger government. I mean, they can't even subpoena Hunter Biden. He's on the House Judiciary. Why have they not drug him in?
Don't even get me into all that.
He has fell right in line, and I'm sorry. I am ashamed that I supported him, at any point, because he is not doing what he should be doing.
Yeah. Well, I can't disagree with that because I was in the same boat, supported him for a while, and just can't seem to do it anymore. All right. Let me switch screens back over here. Okay. So, shall we keep hammering on the silvery-tongued one who walks on water, or shall we change gears and bring this onto a state level and talk about some stuff between here and Baton Rouge?
Whoo, I got to come down a little bit because I'm kind of wound up by that. I might need to talk about some bass fishing or some duck hunting or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and bring Chris Turner in. So let me make sure I click the right button here. Ah, we've got you, Chris. Can you hear us?
I got you. Hey, just for the record, I'm not running for Congress.
Well, wait a minute now. Let's remember, this is live, no takebacks. So are you saying that you're never going to run for Congress, or are you just saying I'm not running right now?
I'm not painting myself into any corners with you guys.
Good answer.
That's what you think.
All right. So thanks for joining us tonight. Like we said earlier, originally, of course, as you know, Dodie was supposed to be on. She ended up having some kind of commitment in Baton Rouge. So, we'll let her off the hook or whatever. So pretty much we'll get started here in a second, and you get to kind of talk about what you want. We may have some questions for you and may take a few questions from the audience. Let me remind everybody, no personal attacks. If you've got a question, it needs to be something that is obviously relevant to either the campaign, Baton Rouge, and things like that, or anything, Chris chooses to talk about from his past. Put it in the comments, and we'll try to maybe put a few of those pertinent questions up later. All right, Mr. Lowry.
Well, I mean, look, Chris, we'll jump right off in it. I mean, I've known you since we were kids. I mean, same as your opponent. I've known both of y'all. Both of y'all have been longtime friends of mine, and y'all. I remember before this race even developed, when there were whispers about y'all were potentially going to run. This was going to be probably one of the most contested races up here. So, what what brought you to the point to get in this? And I guess that would kind of come after a brief introduction of yourself and kind of your background and history. I mean, I know it for, everybody watching.
Yes, sir. Moved to Halton, 1979. Went through Halton schools. Graduated from Halton High School, 87. Same year as my wife, from Halton High School. Attended BIPSI, joined the Army Guard. Got called up, sent overseas for the Gulf War. Got back, got hired by the state police. Finished my 4-year degree in criminal justice at LSUS. Got hired by the U.S. Marshals in 1996. An amazing career. Got sent to Miami, Florida for about 3 years, and got back here in '99. Was down there for kind of the end of the cartel era, is what I call it, and got to do some really cool things there. Protected Supreme Court justice, terrorist judges, hunted down Netflix major kingpin fugitives that they made shows about. Came back to Louisiana, ended up running fugitive operations for the Marshals for about 2/3 of the state. Had a very robust state and local task force, and we arrested not hundreds but thousands of violent fugitives. That's all we did every day. And both of my wife and I, my wife's principal at Platt Elementary in Halton, so I'm married to a 30+ year career educator, and raised both of our kids in Halton schools, Bossier Parish schools, and both graduated with honors, and both were engineering grads at Louisiana Tech, and both are in the oil and gas industry in Bossier Parish.
That's a pretty illustrious career. Well, it's kind of intriguing, all the stuff that you did with the, arresting the drug kingpins and all that sort of thing. It sounds pretty exciting. So I'll just fire off a question for you kind of right off the bat. And this will go to what Duke was asking you earlier. So transitioning from that, what made you want to run for the state rep seat?
Not something that I really ever saw myself doing. Had friends come to me and ask me to consider it. I think there was a lot of frustration in District 9 over current leadership, and I think they wanted to go in a different direction, and for whatever reason, they latched on to me. I tell everybody because they probably thought I was dumb enough to agree to do it, And, you know, I love a challenge. When I set my mind to do something, I'm all in. But on a serious note, I really think I can make a positive difference, not just in District 9 and in Bossier Parish, but in the state as a whole, especially when it comes to the crime problems that we have. And if you look at the polling that's taking place all over the state, I think one of the top issues in almost every poll in this state is crime. And I've got 30 years behind the badge carrying a gun, not counting my military time, that doesn't exist on the floor of the House down there.
Well, why is it, do you think, I mean, and why is it that you think that crime is the top issue of people in the state? And why, if it is, I mean, I'm not saying that's not correct. Other politicians have said, I've heard Jeff Landry's office talking about, crime, and I think Shreveport's rated number one on the top 10 list in the countries of violent cities and stuff. And so, yeah, I think that's accurate. But why is it that that's such a big concern? Is it a shortcoming in law enforcement, or is it a shortcoming in the judicial system, or is it a shortcoming in politics, or is it the whole process?
I think there's blame to be shared all across that spectrum. But I think the legislature can do a lot of things to help the cops on the street be more effective at their job. I used to tell a story that when I first started tracking fugitives with the Marshal Service, it was uncommon to encounter an armed fugitive. And that evolved and changed over my career. And before I retired in December of 2020, not only was it not uncommon to encounter armed fugitives, but it wasn't uncommon to encounter them with multiple weapons. And my teams, I mean, I called us the Special Forces, no disrespect intended to Army Special Forces, but we were the Special Forces of law enforcement. Most of my state and locals were tactical guys on their agency SWAT teams, and we were hunting the worst of the worst. My teams in Louisiana got in 5 shooting lethal force encounters in my last year of work. In addition to those 5 shootings, we watched 2 fugitives commit suicide in front of us. And it's a dangerous world we live in. And I think I'm well suited to articulate that on the floor of the House and to sponsor and push bill packages that are going to help the guys and gals on the street be more effective, because we've turned into a revolving door prison system. You're arresting the same violent offenders over and over again. And I was in Sheriff Prater's office a few months ago. He's who I consider the guru of the failed Justice Reinvestment Act, and we'll get into more detail on that. But he was tracking the criminal history of a violent criminal, and he brought a chart out. And I know you guys have the chart. I sent it to you. I don't know if you want to bring it up. Probably now's a good time to cover it.
Yeah,
But
I'll have it up here in just a second for us. So
he brings this chart out, and we're sitting at the table talking, and there's 4 of us in there, and he's going over it, and he's tracking, violent offense, sex offense, and then you see a gap. You see the red, from 06 to 07, that first gap. Well, that's hard. That's a hard labor sentence. Well, guess what? There's no crimes being committed against the public. Then he gets out, and you've got a long run. And if you read those, there's some tremendously violent crimes that he should have never been released on. And then in 10, hard labor goes across to 14. And he's going over this. And then, he's out in 14. And if you look at those on the bottom, sexually abused a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old in 14 or 15. And then there's some hard labor in 16. And he's going over the chart. And I'm looking at the guy's name, and it rings a bell with me. And I'm like, Sheriff, well, hang on a minute. I said, who is this guy? And when I'm asking him out, I look down at the bottom, and I see the names of the last victims. And he goes, it's the guy that kidnapped and brutalized and murdered the couple from All St. Vincent. I was like, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I'm like, Sheriff, My team arrested that guy. My team tracked down Dwayne Willie Watkins and attempted to apprehend him, and he barricaded up in a house in Queensboro and Shreveport. And this guy, for hours, we were getting a SWAT team in place, setting perimeters, bringing in K9s, getting everybody. And this guy crawled out from under the house after knocking a hole in the floor. And a homicide detective taps me on the leg that's with us at the initial scene. And I'm moving units on the radio and getting people positioned. And he grabs me by the pants leg and taps me again. And I turn down, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. It's freezing cold. And the place was flooded. There had been raining, old Pier and Beam house. And there's waves coming out from under the house. And I drop down on the ground, and I'm looking at Dwayne William Watkins crawling at me with the murder weapon in his hand. But he's smart enough to put the murder weapon in a pillowcase, and he's holding the pillowcase, crawling, and then he turns around, and it's just a mess. It goes on for hours. SWAT team gets in place. He takes off running, dives out the window. But the reason I bring this up is it's very relevant to the problems that we're having in the state of Louisiana right now. We have, and a large part of it is the Justice Reinvestment Act in 2017. We've turned into a revolving door criminal justice system, and the police need help. I can provide some of that help.
Well, so let's talk about what some of that help might look like, because every politician says, they want to help law enforcement, help first responders and all that. And that's all great and good bullet points to put on the website. But specifically, what kind of help? I mean, do they need more guns? Do they need more firepower? Do they need more manpower? What kind of legislation specifically can a lawmaker do to help law enforcement? And, well, I got a follow-up question after that.
Well, I mean, simply put, you have to target the violent offenders, and once they're captured and convicted, they have to be put away for a period of time where police are not having to deal with them on a regular basis. And that's not happening right now. We've got some violent offenders that are doing 25, 35% of their sentences. And by the time the Speedy Trial Act in the state of Louisiana is broken, federal government, I mean, we just got through watching you guys talking about the budget woes in Washington. Well, the federal government screws up a lot of stuff, but they actually do the court system fairly well. They've got an amazing federal sentencing guideline that a prisoner scores out on a chart and knows exactly. The federal judge can look at the guy. This guy's from 48 to 60 month sentence based on his criminal history category and the nature of this offense. And they're going to do 85% of that sentence when they go to prison. That's not happening in the state system. Then the Speedy Trial Act in the state system is broken. In the federal system, it works pretty well. Usually within a year of an arrest, that case has been adjudicated, and that guy's either back at the house, found not guilty, or he's in the U.S. Bureau of Prisons serving sentence. We've got to get some responsible legislation passed where we've got some truth in sentencing, some transparency in the sentencing process. We've got to keep violent, and I'm talking about violent criminals. We've got to target them, and we've got to keep them locked up. And we've got to fix the logjam of a state Speedy Trial Act. We've got some pretrial detainees that are in our parish jails in this area that have been awaiting trial for up to 6 years now. Do you think there's any case agents that know what's going on? Any victim witnesses? Any other witnesses? Nobody's going to remember a case that's 6 years old trying to take it to trial.
Well, all right, so let me do the follow-up, and Duke, I'll, of course, give you opportunity or whatever. So we've all heard the numbers and the statistics that, basically Louisiana has more people per capita locked up than any other state in the nation, or at least we're at the very top of that list. So is the solution locking up more people? I mean, what is the solution? Why are people, any ideas on why people in Louisiana seem to be so violent, or we have so many dadgum criminals?
I think the poverty level in the state contributes to some of that. But I'm not too concerned with the incarceration rate. I'm concerned with the per capita crime rates. And that's what we got to target. And Duke touched on it briefly a minute ago, is it's actually 3 of the 10 deadliest per capita cities in the United States are in Louisiana. And that's Shreveport, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. And we got to turn that around. And it's not being done. I think it's very likely that Jeff Landry is going to be our next governor, and we have very similar backgrounds. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to the guy, but we both deployed in the same unit to Desert Storm together. He went into law enforcement about the same time I started, and I think he decided to go to law school and went that track. And I ended up in federal law enforcement, but I've worked at the local, state, and federal level. Had a brief stint at Bossier PD, and then I was a fireman for a short period of time. But I understand what needs to be done legislatively to help those kids on the street trying to keep us safe.
Well, I want to go back a little bit, and I'm cynical. I'm the cynical one here. Rex is the all positive, and hey, look, frogs are the best for bass, and he's the blue sky thing. I'm not. I'm cynical. I respect your experience, especially when it comes to having been in the federal law enforcement community. I'll say it that way. But for somebody like me, I've lost faith in the system. I don't trust our judicial system, and it's not our law enforcement officers, our rank and file in the street. I think they're all doing the best that they can. And to be honest with you, my advice to them is that you look out for yourself and you make sure that you're going home to your family, because the rest of the government and the judicial system, they don't have your back. And we see it every day. And the truth of the matter is, my personal opinion, I don't think anyone is going to go and create another law that is going to give law enforcement today the support. I hate to say this, but I almost believe each and every one of us out there, we're on our own, and we best be thinking about being able to, handle things for ourselves. So, because I don't think I can count on law enforcement. Not saying that they wouldn't be there and try to help me. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I don't think they're going to have the support to be able to do it. And I respect that, that is what you're wanting to do. But what do you say to somebody like me?
Well, I think you're touching on 2 separate things. I think you're touching on constitutional carry and the critical need and ability to take care of your family, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I've got to disagree with you on the judicial system. And I think with the right legislation in place, and I'll go back to use these federal judges as an example. These guys have lifetime appointments to the bench, which nobody should have a lifetime appointment to anything. But they are required to follow a legislatively created sentencing guideline. And if they deviate from that sentencing guideline, either upwards or downwards, they have to articulate, and then the aggrieved party can appeal that. So they're legislatively mandated to follow a sliding scale to determine.
Let me challenge you here.
Okay.
Do you think there has been equitable application of the law by the federal judiciary and the Department of Justice in regards to, say, January 6th folks, and let's say the Antifa and all them? Do you think that's been equitable?
Well, we're talking about 2 different things.
I don't think we are. We're talking about sedition and
I'll
rioting
explain
and
it.
burning places down and all that.
I think you're talking about the corruption in the executive branch of government, and I don't know that it's so much in the judicial branch, but yeah, I mean, what's going on in Washington is a tragedy. I was a U.S. Marshal. I mean, we call ourselves the blue collar feds. I mean, we were out doing the dirty work every day, and we held our heads up high. and I wasn't a part of any kind of dirty investigations or targeting somebody politically, and that's a mess. And I don't know if the FBI will ever recover from that mess. But I'm talking about fixing things at the state level, and I'm using the federal judges that are working in like the Western District of Louisiana as an example whenever I reference these sentencing guidelines. That whole mess in Washington, man, it's going to take a lot to fix it.
All right. So you opened the door just a second ago with constitutional carry. And of course, you know, my litmus test for every politician, even the dog catcher for that matter, is where they stand on the Second Amendment. So I want to know exactly, where do you stand? Are you going to beat Danny McCormick when he tries to file his next bill? Are you going to, if you win, are you going to have a bill filed before Danny McCormick does to try to get constitutional carry passed? Where do you stand?
Look, if somebody's running with that bill, I will co-author. I think that's the term that they use when they jump on a bill with another rep. But I want to focus on the crime issues, but I will fully support constitutional carry. And I don't understand how it never got off the floor of the House in this last session to begin with, anyway. And that being said, I live guns. I've carried weapons since I was 18 years old, both in the Army and as a law enforcement officer. And I've got one on my side right now, concealed. I've got lifetime concealed carry as a retired U.S. Marshal. Criminals, violent criminals, are already carrying concealed weapons. We should have the right to protect ourselves, protect those around us, protect our families by carrying concealed as well. So I fully support constitutional carry, and I will debate face to face with any law enforcement professional that thinks otherwise, because I don't think they're a real cop if they don't support it. As a cop on the street, there's plenty of times when I would have just been tickled to death to have a constitutional carry Pro 2A civilian to back me up on a scene. And that's what's happening. Police officers on the street rarely encounter a crime in progress. 9 times out of 10, they're responding to it after it's already happened. Well, that means somebody's already become a victim. We have to be able to defend ourselves, and we have to put that seed of thought in the bad guy's mind that, hey, if I try to carjack this couple at the gas station, does he have a gun? Is he going to shoot me? We got to start getting serious about that.
All right. So one more follow-up question to that then is, and let me just say before you answer this, you may ruffle the feathers of some of our local law enforcement friends around here, but where do you stand? And this is a very generalized question, but where do you stand on civilians and the AR-15 platform?
I lump it in with constitutional carry.
Okay.
It's a tool that can be used to protect. And I've got lots of AR-15s. I've carried that weapon system again since I was 18 years old in the military. It works. It works well, and I think civilians should continue to have access to them. And let's go a little further with it. Suppressors. You know, there's an ATF law, federal law, that prohibits the possession of a suppressor without a tax stamp.
Yeah.
In 30 years of policing, I've never encountered a violent offender carrying a suppressor. That should be it should be the other way around. It should be an OSHA requirement to protect your hearing as a gun owner to have a suppressor readily available on that weapon. So no, I'm about as to the extreme as you can get on the Second Amendment and civilian rights to possess weapons.
All right.
Well, I want to transition and try to move through several other, issues real fast. So something personal to me is election integrity, because I have my beliefs, and if you've ever watched any of our shows, you probably know what my belief is. But I'm curious about what Chris Turner thinks about, let's say, the 2020 election. And the reason that that's important to me is because the state of Louisiana is at a crossroads with our election machines, and even in this the ballot you will be on, we've got a Secretary of State's race where all of the candidates, with the exception of one, are calling, all of them are against hand-marked paper ballots. One candidate is in favor of hand-marked paper ballots. And I mean, what do you think? What do you think about the 2020 election? I want to know, was it a good election or not?
The health of our republic hinges on election integrity. Without free and fair elections, we don't have a country anymore.
Do you think the 2020 election was a fair election? Do you think
No.
Joe Biden beat Donald Trump?
No, I don't. I think that election was compromised. I think the ballot dumping that took place. What was that show? 2,000 Mules, the documentary. I believe that was an accurate representation of what transpired on election night in 2020. So I don't have the answers on what system is the best to put in place, but I will tell you this, that if there needs to be a recount conducted in a race, there needs to be a system that works to allow that to happen accurately.
Can't argue with that.
Nope.
All right. Follow up, Duke, or you want me to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, I noticed on your website, and I'm pulling this straight from your website. It says Chris supports legislation that toughens the penalties for fentanyl, methamphetamine, and opioid crimes. I think we would pretty much all agree with that. But here's my question. We've already got thousands of laws on the books. I mean, is it like the meth heads are sitting there doing meth or crack or whatever they do these days? Do they really think, oh, if I take a hit of this crack pipe again, that, oh, dang, I'm going to get 5 more years? I mean, how are the laws, enacting more laws, going to help with that situation? Because it is a problem.
Yeah, in that regard, I think most of those laws are on the books. I think they just need to be sentenced to the appropriate length of time. And that's where you get into your transparency in sentencing, and you come up with a sentencing guideline range that makes sense. And that's what the federal government's done. Again, I fall back on that because I know it inside and out. And they've changed. It's evolved over the years. And crack is an example of that. They've come back and reduced some of the sentences, or some of the sentencing guideline, saying they exceeded what was fair and equitable. So, I mean, it's a living document, or a living that can be changed over time. But I think there's plenty of laws on the books as related to the drug possession. But if you get into the fentanyl, let's talk about the border. If you want to talk about the problems we got in the country right now, I mean, when I started with the state police in 1992, after a short period of time, I was on the SWAT team, but then I got assigned to a unit called criminal patrols. And I didn't work wrecks. I didn't arrest drunks. I didn't write speeding tickets. All I did every day was look for smugglers smuggling large quantities of illegal narcotics across I-20 through the state of Louisiana. And we had a great unit. We did it well. We had canines, and this is back in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. The tragedy that's going on at our border right now is destabilizing our country and is dangerous to our national sovereignty. And if anybody does not believe that large quantities of methamphetamine and fentanyl are pouring across our border, and organized criminals and cartel members are pouring across our border, they're sadly mistaken.
And so does that include Louisiana?
We're the next stop. I mean, if you get past Texas, we're the next stop. My belief is, and we have an administration in Washington right now that's allowing this to happen and facilitating it happen. And you can believe, we've all got our opinions on why it's happening, but it's my belief that if the federal government won't stop it, we can't leave Governor Abbott down there by himself to try to do it. We need to be sending Louisiana troopers, Louisiana wildlife agents, and Louisiana National Guardsmen and women down there to stand shoulder to shoulder with those same officials from the state of Texas to try our best to at least stem flow a little bit.
I dang sure agree with that. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt. But you know, I wanted to touch on. I mean, because there's a lot more to being a legislator and being in government. I mean, I go back to and contend that I think our border problem, it could be fixed. While I would love nothing more to be able to say that, you know what, it's all Joe Biden's fault and just be able to lay the blame right there at one person. But you know what? That's not reality. Reality is it's not even just Democrats. I mean, just like in our intro talking about Matt Getz and you know, it's an invasion down there and it's a fallacy. And look, I'm the chair of the Republican Party of Bossier, and I'm saying it's as much the Republican Party's fault as it is the Democrats' fault as it is Joe Biden's fault. If they had will to do something about it, they would. And the thing is, everybody runs for office and they have these platitudes and they go along to get along. You know, they well, you know, I got to play nice. I got to play the game, go along to get along. You know, and that leads into um, this thing with money and debts and income and budgets and all this stuff. And as I was talking earlier, we are always about we need to elect the best person to go home and bring home the bacon. Are you the best person to go home and go down and bring the bacon? I mean, is that what Chris Turner's campaign is about? Is that the primary job here? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, bacon's a part of the issue, but so is crime, so is our out of control insurance, so is our screwed up economy, and so is education. So it's a part of it, but it's just a spoke in the wheel.
Well,
But
the well, the, in,
but it's
well,
important. I
the
mean, we're one of the highest tax parishes in the state. I think we're in the top 5.
Isn't the
And if you
insurance issue part of the judiciary? Because isn't it the trial lawyers that have a hand in that as well?
you said is it part of the judiciary?
Yeah, I mean the legal system, the lawyers, aren't they a part of the cause of the insurance? You know, I mean, look, I'm a victim of that. I had to move my company to Oklahoma, and because of insurance in Louisiana, and I mean, isn't that a part?
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're going with that, and it's a part. I mean, we do need drastic tort reform in the state, but I think there's also some fault to be shared with the insurance companies as well. And there's going to be some people way smarter than me that I'm going to try to surround myself with. And I'm not naive. I'm not going to paint myself in a corner and make promises that I don't know that I can keep. But I'm going to try to work with the smartest people I can find to try to make a difference. You know, my insurance went up like 31% in my premium that just came across last month with USAA, and then uh, I've got a business as well that I have a commercial vehicle in that I'm looking at selling that vehicle right now because that insurance is, for one vehicle is like $1,000 a month, and I can't afford that. And as well as I do, you just told me it happened to you. Companies and businesses are fleeing our state because of these problems. So it's critical. We need to be focusing on that. That's the things that we need to be focusing on that we need to fix immediately in the state. And it's not happening.
So why do you think it's not happening? Because, through all the campaign rhetoric and, Facebook comments and all that, going back to Duke's issue about bringing the bacon back home, there's been a lot of allegations of certain politicians, I'll be nice tonight, that they're not doing enough to bring the money back north of I-10. Why is that? Why can't we seem to get money back up here, back up north, and as Duke said, bringing home the bacon?
I mean, I can speculate on that. I don't know for a fact, but I just think it's time that we get strong leaders that know how to talk and work with people and can work together to get some effective things done back in this area. And I think I can be one of those people.
All right, fair enough. Duke?
Well, let me ask you another, and this is a hypothetical, and you ain't got to answer it if you don't want, of course. But had you been in the legislature the last session and you were faced with the vote for Speaker of the House, I don't know, you may not have followed any of that, but, would it have been Clay Scheck-Snyder or would it have been somebody else?
I don't know enough about that issue to say where I would stand on it. I mean, I did hear that Scheck-Snyder negotiated to secure votes from both sides of the aisle to get that job done, and I think he might have promised some committee leadership positions to do it. If we have a Republican supermajority, look, I want to work with everybody, including Democrats, but I also don't think we should be giving up leadership positions because I don't think that the other side of the aisle is going to reciprocate if the roles were reversed.
Fair enough. All right. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. So I'm reading from your website, and it's under the section leading from the front. It says you're going to, says you're going to look into or deal with much needed infrastructure improvements. So the question is, what are some of the specific much needed improvements that you're talking about as far as up here in District 9?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at what happened in the last session alone, just in District 9, and we won't even talk about the Jimmy Davis Bridge since it's not in District 9, but that's real money. I'm endorsed and supported by Mayor Gaspard, the mayor of Halton. I haven't put that out yet. He's very frustrated with current leadership and has tried to get on the same page, and it's not working. And as a result, we missed out on, just in the town of Halton, almost $3 million for the water system that they need. I mean, people have brown water in their tubs all over Halton right now. And then some priority one road funding projects that were pulled, I think to the tune of about $6 million. And then if you look at the sheriff's department, they lost $11 million for a new criminal operations building. They're operating, I think they've got an office in an old bank vault in Benton right now for somebody up there. So we just got to be smarter about how we work our politics. And, if you want to go into detail on this, if you understand that the majority of the legislature is going to vote to support a budget bill that includes busting a spending cap. This ain't raising a debt ceiling like Washington, D.C. This is busting a spending cap to spend our tax dollars that shouldn't be down there to begin with. But you had $2.2 billion in surplus money that they should have figured out a way to giving it back to us. But it's like you paying on your house, and I mentioned this in a speaking event the other day. It's like you doubling up on your payments on your house and trying to get the bank out of your back pocket because you want to own it free and clear, but a tree falls through your roof when it's raining in your house. Well, you need to back up and fix that hole in your roof, or your house not going to be worth anything when it's all said and done. And that's where we are with our critical infrastructure in the state. Is we've got to spend the money to fix our roads, to fix our utilities and our water systems and that kind of things. If we're going to have a state anybody wants to live in.
Are you in favor of passing increased taxes to do all that?
No. I think we need to repeal the state income tax. I mean, look at was it Boise Bollinger in New Orleans that just moved to Mississippi? I mean, you don't think a state income tax had anything to do with that? We used to could always make fun of Mississippi for being behind us. They'd be 50th and we'd be 47, 48, 49. I think we're number 50 now in just about everything. We if we're going to compete and get people here and keep our young people here, we need to repeal and do away with the state income tax. Period.
So, all right, along that kind of train of thought, as far as taxes go, I also noticed on your website that you're committed to pursuing the means necessary to bring our teachers' pay up to the regional average without raising taxes. All right. So my question is, back in 2019, and full disclosure, I was very involved in this, but back in 2019, the Bossier Parish School Board attempted a huge tax increase that failed miserably at the ballot box, 75% to 25%. Were you for or against that tax increase?
I'm against. I think we need to reprioritize our budget money, and I look at education as a core building block. Again, with the economy, crime, and education, to have to rebuild in the state and make it in a place where people want to live is we have to get our teacher pay up, but we have to do it within the confines of the budget money that we have in place now. And what I'm seeing, look, I'm married to a 30+ year educator. Well, my wife's been a elementary school principal for, I don't know, 14, 15 years now, somewhere in that range. When she first started hiring new teachers, if she had a vacancy, she would have a dozen highly qualified teachers applying for a job. Now she's lucky to get one person apply for a job that's not a certified teacher. What do you think that's going to contribute to down the road in our test scores for our kids? And a large part of it is teacher pay. If we cannot fund teacher pay and keep our teachers here, I've got a neighbor kid across the street that left Louisiana and is teaching school over in East Texas right now, making more money. And the same thing's happening in law enforcement. If we're going to be effective at crime, we have to fix the laws like what I explained earlier, but we got to pay a competitive wage to our police and fire to keep them here. Right now, a kid can graduate from the Shreveport Police Academy and he's going to be making $40,000 a year as a brand new patrol officer on the street. This is new information, fairly recent new information. He can go an hour and a half down the road to Tyler, Texas, get hired, and immediately start making $72,000 a year. And Texas, look, they're doing it smart. They're recognizing Louisiana Post police officer standards, and they're saying, all right, look, you come over here, we're going to certify you, and you're going to do a 2-week ride along. So you can go over there and get what? What is that? I wasn't good in math, a $32,000 pay raise for driving an hour and a half down the road. And what's happening and what's going to start happening even more is they're going to start cherry picking the best and the brightest early in their careers to jump ship and go to these other states. Arkansas is on the bandwagon. They're heading in that direction as well. I think new teachers in Arkansas are making $50,000 a year starting pay. It's not a lot of money, but it's a lot more than what they're making here in Louisiana. And if we're going to fix these problems, we have to pay these educators and these police and fire like the professionals that they are, and we got to keep them here.
Well, on that issue, education, which that's a really good one. I'm wondering, do you subscribe to and or believe in the idea that the money should follow the kids? I mean,
do.
so
I
so
do. And from a myopic point of view, Bossier Parish, I think we have excellent schools in Bossier Parish, in spite of being one of the lowest paid parishes in the region. But I know that look, I worked all over the state. I think I've been in every parish in the state at some point in time working. We got some terrible public school systems in the state, and a parent shouldn't be saddled because they're stuck living somewhere with their kid having to stay in the system. I don't have a problem with the money following the student, but with a caveat, where if it's to a private school system, then they have to follow the same testing standards that the public school systems do.
That's
And
right. That's right. And I want to stop right there because I have a child that is in private school. But if I'm paying for that, shouldn't I get a tax break and not have to pay twice?
I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with that at all. I'm gonna say yes.
And if I'm paying additionally, let's say for instance for BIPSTL, I'm paying taxes for BIPSTL, even if my child goes to a private school, say even in this parish, shouldn't they be able to go to BIPSTL and have those extra training programs? I mean, if I'm paying for the taxes, they should have the benefit of doing that. But I'm not.
Absolutely. Anything we can do to better educate our young people, we need to be doing it. I mean, we need to be these early childhood education programs. We need to be more involved in that. I know I know DeSoto Parish in canvassing and knocking on doors. I talked to an administrator from DeSoto Parish the other night, and DeSoto Parish. I mean, the Secretary of Ed Brumby is from there. He was a superintendent of that system, and they were one of the pioneers in early childhood education. And I know Bossier Parish is doing it, but that's something we really need to push if we're going to make a difference in these kids' lives. And look, BIPSTL, that's an awesome program. It needs to be pushed and expanded in more parts of the state. And the trades, I mean, my gosh, we've kicked them to the curb. And
I think the BIPSTL program is a great program, but I would say that I my son, he can't go and participate at BIPSTL because he goes to Providence, and I don't think that's right. My daughter goes to Benton High School; she can go to BIPSTL. You know, that's not fair to me. I'm still paying taxes on it. That's just one thing, a personal thing, and
that's the
go
first
ahead.
time I've heard that. But look, that makes 100% sense. You're a taxpayer regardless of where your kid's going to school. You live in the parish. You pay those parish taxes. Yeah, your kid should be able to go there.
All right. So let me see if I've got another question here.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, go
I
ahead, dude.
I do.
We've got, so before you ask that, though, we do have a couple of good ones from the audience. Maybe before we wrap up, we'll take a question or two from the comments if Chris wants to, but go ahead, dude.
Yeah, now look, I mean, I've spent a many a day in duck blind and stuff with Chris over the
Easy
years.
now.
Me and him can we can go at it a little bit. All right, so this one is the last one with the Bipsel thing. That one's a little personal to me. It's not as personal as this one, and I've you and I have had some dialogue about this a while back, but I want to broach this subject again. Um, I live up here on Black Bayou Lake, and we have had a lot of problems up here in Benton regarding the management of the lake and the board up here. And in my opinion, I don't think they have represented the interests of the people. As you know, um, me and Rex were some of the ringleaders on the term limits thing in Bossier City, and we intend to move forward with it in Bossier Parish as well too with the police jury. So I want to know, your words on term limits, but on the Cypress Park, your opponent, um, she kind of took the bull by the horns and listened to the complaints of the residents and people that live up around the lake, and she took some action. And it said that a lot of people support you, and a lot of those people that were in opposition to her and to us that live up here on the lake, and they're supporting you. And I mean, does that mean that you know you don't agree with people up here on the lake that they don't have a say? I mean, where do you? I'm trying to be as amicable as I can here. Where do you stand on that issue and talk about it?
Well, look, I'm a law and order guy. Um, you got to follow the rule of law. In my limited understanding of what I've been told on that issue is you had somebody had I think the dual office holder deal, and the state law prohibits that, and I think that's been remedied uh, properly. Um, I I'm an outdoorsman. I'm not a fake politician. I don't even really want to be called a politician, but I'm not somebody that's going to walk through the woods in the summertime with a gun on my shoulder, pretending like I'm a 2A supporter. I'm as real as you can get. I can blow a duck call. My son probably says I'm not the best in the world, but I fish those lakes. I know those lakes. I know the creek channels on those lakes. I know the brush piles. I know the
Okay,
points.
let me stop you. Let me stop you. I'm not asking you if you know where the creeks and all that stuff. I'm asking you, are you going to stand with us up here on the lake who want a voice on the activities that take place up here, or are you going to stand with the people who have been railroading the people up here and not allowing them to have a voice? And some of those people have supported you. Does that articulate, into that you're going to do their bidding?
I'm a small, limited government guy. Um, I think the parish owns the lake. I think you and I had discussed that at some point. Um, I, I wouldn't have an issue turning it over and making it a state park, and the whole lake a state park. I got no problem with that. I would look if it came under my purview as a state rep. I would look at the need for a board to begin with. I mean, uh, we have a police jury. If it's going to stay a parish lake, can the police jury run the lake? Can they assign somebody as a general manager to run it? I don't know, but I can tell you this: I'm gonna make a decision with the information I have at hand at that time, and if it falls under my purview, I'm gonna try to make the best decision I have with that information, and that's all I can say in that matter. I mean, I don't want to get drug into that whole mess. I mean, that whole deal was just terrible.
Well, I want to get back to the brush piles, though. Hold on just a second. The creek channels. I mean, we can turn this into an outdoor show real quick.
I'm with you, Rick. Let's do it.
All right. So,
and I'm not talking about like crappie jigs in the brush piles. I'm talking about like dragging a brush hog through them.
There you go.
And
now
trying
we're
to get
talking.
those bass that are suspended in them to bite. Yeah.
All right.
Now
Well,
we're talking.
I apologize from dragging y'all across, back from jigs and frogs here, but I mean, look, we've got to talk about this, and I mean, would you, let me say this, for term limits, it's going to take legislative action to initiate term limits in Bossier Parish for a police jury. That's where it's going to have to happen. One, would you support, that, and or even, sponsor a bill to bring term limits for the Bossier Parish police jury? And second, would you be willing to bring a bill if the citizens, enough petitioned to make a change to the structure of the Cypress District in whatever way, or to possibly make it a state park? I'm not saying that the state park is the way to go. I'm not saying that at all. It may be. But what I can tell you is that the people up here want change. They're being ignored. They have been being ignored by the police jury, and countless other people. And it actually took Jeff Landry's office step up and fight when, and I go back to it, the judicial system up here, stuck their thumb in the eye of the public. All of our local elected officials did the same. They wouldn't step up. And the only one up here was your opponent. So I just want to know that I'm going to be able to count on you. Now, I can't vote on you. You're not my legislator, but you are my friend. I can pick up the phone and call you. Maybe not after tonight, but
No.
I need to know, if we call you up here and we're not getting our say, we've got somebody we can turn to, because everybody else failed us up here. They did.
Look, like I said, I love both of those lakes. I'm going to do everything I can to protect them and to protect the property owners around the lakes, and to try to make those government processes run like they're supposed to run. I support term limits. I think if you look at the clown show that takes place in Washington on a daily basis, that's a perfect litmus test for the need for term limits, and we got to have them, and we got to have them across the board.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that at all. All right, Mr. Lowry. I'm out of questions. What else? What other topics do we want to cover?
Well, those are the main things I had. I was trying to look back through the comments. I don't know if you've paid
I've got
attention to any questions that were in there that were, fair and good questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them flagged, so we may jump around a little bit. Jamie Marie Pope says, "Where does he stand on school choice?"
I thought we covered that.
Pretty much, I think we did.
I thought we did too.
Yeah, I think
but you're in favor of school choice, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
With certain limitations, but yes.
Okay. Next question is from Wes Marriott of Bossier City Council fame. He says, "What replaces the state income tax?" So you talked about doing away with the state income tax. What replaces that, or does anything replace it?
Man, that's a tough question. I don't have all the answers on that one. But they're doing it in other states, and we got to figure out how to do it here. I mean, I know a little bit about Texas because I have family over there, and they have the independent school districts there. They don't have homestead exemptions, so the property taxes are higher. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. But I think it's going to take. It may even take a constitutional convention. I don't know, but I think we're going to have to really get down in the weeds and figure out where to adjust and cut to make it work. But I still have all the answers on that one.
Okay. So
thanks, Wes.
So I've got a question from Colonel Crockett here, and Colonel Crockett, forgive me, but I'm going to kind of reword your question slightly, but I think keep the basic tone of the question correct. So you're running against Dodie Horton. She's by all accounts pretty popular in the district or whatever. So what separates you from Dodie? In other words, big picture, what are you going to be able to do better than Dodie, or do you think she's, made some bad votes or anything like that? In other words, what's going to separate you from your opponent?
Look, she's a sweet lady. We were friends before this. I hope we remain friends after this is over with, regardless of who wins. She's in a job that it's a thankless job. Not many people want it except Duke.
I learned my lesson.
And me. But I think it comes back to the crime problems that we have in the state. It's the number one polling issue that we have. And if you look across the floor of the legislature in Baton Rouge, there's nobody that's been in the trenches that understands what law enforcement officers on the street need to help make us a safer state. And that's the number one thing I bring to the table. And then I've got a career of leadership that's results driven. I've led tactical operations in other states. I've tracked down cop killers. I led COVID operations under the Trump administration in Nebraska when that outbroke in early 2020. And I'm talking about multi-agency operations where I had DEA and FBI and ATF and state and local agencies and even some fire department hazmat units assigned working for me. And it's time we get results-oriented, results-driven leadership back involved in the government, and we need to inject some real integrity back in the process. And that's what I bring to the table, and that's why I think I'm the best person for the job.
Okay, fair enough.
No, you just gave me a thought here. You still hold a commission, right?
A retired commission, yes, sir.
Well, I'm just thinking you might could get down there and actually cuff and stuff some people on the spot.
I knew where you were headed with that.
It just crossed my mind.
That might not be such a bad idea.
Yeah, no, you're right. One of my pet peeves throughout my career is public corruption. I despise it. I don't think it's investigated and prosecuted enough. And I will be an advocate for figuring out a way to staff units within the state police as needed, but we have got to tackle public corruption. Can't stand it.
We may need to send him over to the city council, Duke. What do you think?
I don't know. I am the skeptic, and I see corruption in a lot of different places, and that's what blows my mind is I see it, and I know that everybody else sees it, but for some reason, the people with the ability to enforce the law and the people with the ability to and stuff, it's not happening, and it's only happening to select people when it does happen. And and Chris, I'm not diminishing you in any way, shape, form, or fashion in saying this, but I I'm skeptical of our ability to be able to promote, increase law enforcement to handle a problem. I mean, literally today, I saw another train coming across the border. There had to have been thousands of people. Law enforcement combined, funded at the top ranks, aren't going to be able to contain or deal with the problems coming our way. It's going to take combined forces of a military. We're at that point, and I think we're at the point of no return. I mean, I may be wrong, and I may be just the black helicopter guy, but that's the way I see it.
I'm not a conspiracy. Yeah, go ahead, Rex.
Oh no, go right ahead, Chris.
Well, I mean, I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist guy, but and I think every campaign, especially at the national level, they all say that we're at a tipping point. We may be I mean, I don't know. We may be past it, but I don't have any quit in me, and I'm going to fight to my last breath to try to fix this great country that we live in. We're still, as bad as things are, I mean, we're still the best country in the world to live in, and I want to do my part to try to make a positive difference, and I really think I can do that in this position.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and start wrapping it up. Duke, I just want to remind you that when you mentioned the black helicopters with Chris's background, he might have been one of those guys in the helicopters, in those black helicopters. Just saying. Might be.
I said U.S. Marshals, not FBI.
Okay. So, all right. Anything
How much
else?
longer do we have any more time?
We can go. Look, we've gone 3.5 hours. We can go as long as you want.
Look, one of the things we didn't touch on was juvenile crime in the state. And man, if you look at the number of gun crimes that are occurring in the state of Louisiana, and you look at the number of juveniles that are involved in that, it's horrible. And our legislature in this JRA in 2017, one of the things they did was change the age of an adult to 18 from 17, and the majority of the gun crimes that are taking place are being committed by 17-year-olds, violent shootings. And one would think that they're drug related, but the majority of them aren't. They're turf battles because somebody's been slighted on social media, and this neighborhood gang of young kids is arguing with this one, and when they meet up, it turns into a shootout. That's where we need directed law enforcement that knows how to investigate that stuff as it's developing and knows how to go out and interdict that when it's taking place. And when you get, let's say you get a colonel from state police that comes and gives a speech on the floor of the House, well, I'm going to call BS real quick if they try to shovel some garbage down our throats. We have got to have real solutions, and it's not pretty. It's like what y'all talked about, making sausage or whatever earlier. We got to make some serious decisions to stem some of this gun violence, and we got to change the age back to 17 is one of the very first things. Very first bill in the bill package I'm bringing is to change the age of an adult back to 17, and then detention facilities in OJJ. Number one, the OJJ is broken completely. They're following an old Missouri model where they coddle these kids that are violent offenders, and they're getting attacked. They're getting brutalized. Other kids are getting attacked in these facilities around the state. And there's not enough of these facilities to house these kids. We're actually having to beg for bed space in other states and move violent juvenile offenders to other states to detain them. And the less serious ones are getting returned back to the street because there's not any place to put them. And yet we want to blow tax money on performing arts centers and Lafayette and and parks in New Orleans and all this waste and abuse with our tax money, when we need to be focusing on the serious problems that are affecting us today. And the juvenile crime problem, I mean, these kids are in gladiator factories, and they're the ones that are aging out of the juvenile system and becoming adults, and they're the ones that are this Watkins that's kidnapping these families and brutalizing them. We got to fix it. I can help do that.
Well, that brings up an interesting point since we're going to go another few minutes. So we talked a lot about solving the symptoms of it, but how do we solve the root cause of I'll just call it a disease. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm full pro law enforcement for the most part, but that's solving the symptoms. How do we solve the root cause of this issue? How do we solve what's proliferating or whatever, all this violence and all these kids?
I saw it every day. I mean, it's broken homes. It's grandmothers raising grandkids. It's 13 and 14-year-old kids having babies and leaving them with the grandmothers. There's no easy solution for it. But there's got to, at some point, we got to reestablish the two-parent family system, and we got to get our churches involved and really get serious about some of these community programs involved. And we got to get really serious about trying to redirect these kids away from living on the streets, which is what they're doing right now.
Can't argue that. Mr. Lowry, got any follow-up?
No, I am good. I mean, Chris, anything that you want to close with and wrap up?
Well, I got to be forthcoming, and I got to tell you this, but Rex was showing me some fishing pictures earlier, and I recognized some of those trees in the background. So I've got to tell you, that 6-pound bass you were holding with that whopper plopper, I know exactly where you were. I'm running a campaign right now, so I'm not getting to fish very much, or at all. So your spot's safe until after October the 14th. But
I thought I'd pixelated that out enough, but I guess not.
A shameless plug. Early vote starts September the 30th. Again, I'm not a politician, but all of these talking heads are telling me that it's the early votes that win these races. So I encourage everybody to get out early vote if you can. And if you can't, October 14th is election day. And I would love to go down there and try to make a difference.
Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. So here's what I will do, Chris. Like we said earlier, kind of in the pre-show, I would encourage you to maybe scroll back through some of the comments when you have a chance. And, if you see some comments where people have some questions or whatever that maybe we didn't address during the show, feel free to reply to those and respond to them. And, hey, we appreciate you coming on. I mean, again, it was originally set up as a debate style, but it ended up being the District 9 Chris Turner show. So we appreciate you coming on.
The last thing is, Duke, thank you for not bringing up any of those duck hunts from when we were kids. Even though I think the statute of limitations is run on most of them.
Yeah, Lord, I hope so, but hey.
All right. Well, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and hang you up here. We appreciate it. And if you need anything, just holler at us. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate what you do.
All right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Lowry.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I very interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and have to read the comments during the show here because there's some humdingers going on.
We're at 226 comments right now.
Yeah, it's on fire in there, and I can't keep up with it. But I don't know. Some people criticize us and say we should have pushed him a little harder. But look, it was supposed to be a debate, and typically the debates are between the candidates. And, I think we hit the points of the issues that At least I know I did. There was 2 of them that were personal to me, and, he answered them. I mean, you can haggle about specific issues all night long, but, you just gotta get down to it, and he answered my questions. I don't know. I think your question, I think Second Amendment, he got on that for you.
Oh
Was it?
yeah, he was on point with that. I can't argue with any of his responses on that at all. And I want to point that out. So 2 things. One, we said several times, but we got another comment here. So let's see. Let me put it up on the screen. Let's see. From Jessica Tanner, Tanner Gilliard, hope I said that right. Said, Duke, why was this debate just one person? Again, Dodie was invited. She had confirmed to come on, but ended up having some kind of committee meeting or something in Baton Rouge that she had to end up go attending, so she was welcome on. But instead, of course, we decided to go ahead and have Chris just come in remotely since it was just him. And I'd like to remind everybody that when we do these interviews like this, as y'all know, we've always been, I think, pretty fair to all the guests, even with guests that we may not necessarily agree with. When we have a guest on, we're not here to specifically attack them or do a gotcha or argue with them a lot. We want to ask some pretty pointed questions if we can, get the responses, and let y'all folks decide based on the candidate or the guest's response.
Yeah, and I think we accomplished that. And with that in mind, I would point out, Rex, we've gotten a call that is we a request for us to put together a debate in Caddo Parish.
Caddo.
In a Senate race over there, and between 3 candidates. One of them has been in a debate previously on our show for Bessie. And I will tell you that I took it to start asking the 3 candidates if they would be willing to participate, and they have all 3 agreed, and it's a Senate race in Caddo, and they've all 3 agreed to participate, and we are trying to get the date hammered down. It's looking like October the 5th, but I'm waiting on 1 candidate to confirm the date. So,
okay. Yeah, that'll make it interesting. Speaking of that, next Tuesday night, I think we've got actually 1, 2, maybe I know of at least 1 or 2, maybe 3 guests lined up. So it's going to be a very, very interesting show. And I'll go ahead and tease it out. One of the guests, his last name is Gaddy.
Oh boy,
that should be interesting.
Is he announcing that he's running for something?
I swear up and down. I don't know. I'm not really sure, I guess, what would be the next election, but maybe he's going to announce something. I'm sure he'll announce something. Now, whether he's running or not, who knows?
Now, we've been trying to get him to come on here for how long? And we've even proposed a debate between him and Seabiscuit before.
Right. Maybe. Well, look, maybe we can get Seabiscuit on at the same time. They can talk insurance.
I would love to watch that debate and be a part of that. And interestingly, that's another point I want to point out. We did ask, somebody asked us to try to put that debate together between, I call him the coach in that Senate race with Seabiscuit.
Mm-hmm.
And, at occasion at the Jeff Landry event, I ran into Seabiscuit and I asked him, and interestingly, I'll say it the way that I said it to him. I said to him, he's probably scared. He heard me say it, and he could tell I was gesturing to him. And he said, scared of what? And I said, well, a debate, but you probably wouldn't want nothing to do with that. And he says, I'll debate anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Well,
and he bristled. So
yeah.
I said, okay, well, I will reach out to your opponent and I will see about setting a debate up between y'all. And so I didn't have his opponent's phone number, but I know someone that did, and they called him and he declined. He didn't want to have nothing to do with any debate with Alan Seaball.
Well, you never know what may happen. Maybe we'll just have Seaball on one night just solo, or maybe we can egg him into coming on Tuesday night and talk insurance. Gaddy, I don't know. Who knows?
Would it be offensive if I wore my Seabiscuit hat if he ever did?
You know, he is pretty scrappy. I'll give him that.
He would probably really hate me, huh?
He probably would drive straight up to Benton to your house. Knock on your door.
I wish he would. That would be capital.
All right. So we've been running about 65, 70 people, across all the platforms all night. We appreciate everybody watching. That's a pretty darn good crowd, especially for Thursday night. Our normal night is Tuesdays at 7. So we appreciate everybody watching. We appreciate all the commentary. We do go back and read a lot of the comments after the show, and we'll try to respond to a few of them. But we encourage y'all to just keep it relatively civil. We don't moderate the comments unless it's an obvious troll or something. But, pretty much we let everybody say what they want within reason. So y'all keep up with the commentary.
All right. Appreciate everybody being here. Have a good night, Rex.
All right, it's dinner time. I'm headed out.